Well, Michael Gove, thank you hugely for joining us for the virtual campaign launch here in East Lothian. Obviously, we're campaigning under COVID restrictions, but it doesn't mean that we aren't out there fighting hard to try and make sure that we beat the SNP here in East Lothian. I think we first met back in the mid-2000s when you were first elected to Parliament, and I was publishing the House magazine at the time, and we used to meet on a Tuesday morning, I think it was, in Portcullis House, because you were also an associate editor of the House magazine. And I remember those days quite fondly because it was an opportunity for a group of parliamentarians, yourself, Gisela Stewart, Austin Mitchell at points, and luminaries such as Geoffrey Howe and Betty Boothroyd and others to come together, put to one side political differences and talk about issues. And sometimes that was high politics, the church, or on occasion I seem to remember it going into which absurd act had won Britain's Got Talent that weekend. But what it did, I think, show me, and particularly about you, I think, Michael, was your ability to talk about a whole range of issues, but also to make sure that you remain kind of rooted with what's going on out there in the country. How, obviously, I've got any thoughts about those days, that would be great. But how important do you think it is that politicians do remain kind of rooted in the real world?
I think it's incredibly important. And I remember those days with great affection. I was a newbie MP, and there I was surrounded, as you quite rightly point out, by political voices and faces that I'd grown up watching, great men and women, as well as a very talented young team in the magazine. And the great thing about the House magazine was that it was there for MPs, but what it did was act as a forum for debate, but also a way of bringing different views together. People who were passionate about politics could discuss it, but also, as well as discussing politics, you're absolutely right. Those conversations included everything from speculating about which light entertainment show on a Saturday evening was the best, to swapping football stories or whatever it might be. And I think it's absolutely vital that people like yourself who are rooted in the community and who've got a range of interests are in politics, because what we need are well-rounded people in politics, and people who are not just focused on the legislation and the regulation, which is so important, but are thinking about how what we do has an impact on the lives of our friends, our family, our neighbours, and our fellow citizens.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was in the lobby for about 12 years. You were a journalist before you came into politics. What skills transfer from journalism to politics, and which are the skills that you should make sure you leave at the threshold?
Well, the first thing is, if you're a journalist turned politician, you shouldn't imagine that you can get any, what's the word, softer treatment from the media as a result. Quite the opposite.
No. If anything, it's the opposite, I remember.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sean Simon learned that lesson, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think the key thing is that as a journalist, there are two skills that are transferable. The first is when you or I are writing news stories, one of the things I was first taught is describe the events as though you were talking to your mum or anyone close to you. So what you've got to do is you've got to distill things down to the essentials. And so often in politics, there's obfuscation and jargon and all the rest of it. And if politics is to be real, then you need to be able to communicate what's really important to people who have busy lives and who need things boiled down to the essentials. The other great journalistic thing, I think, is being able to absorb a massive information relatively quickly, and to ask the right questions. Because often in politics, what you're doing, whether you're challenging the SNP or trying to get the best out of a local health board or whatever it might be, the key thing is to ask the questions that genuinely elicit information so that you're in a better position to be able to shape laws or to get the result for your constituents that you want. And so in that sense, I think those are two valuable skills. Yeah. You can get them in other jobs, but I think journalism teaches you the importance of clear communication and asking the right questions.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Because after I left Westminster, I then launched my own firm in Asia, and for 12 years, running a business, you learn to ask different questions, but nonetheless important questions. And I think certainly I found that combination of those two experiences kind of really valuable. Are there any kind of real lessons that you learned once you got in that you wish you'd learned earlier? Was there any sort of one standout point that you would say to somebody, particularly I'm 45, so I'm going in quite late, anything you think, the real do or the real don't?
I think there are so many. I think the most important thing is time management. So, make sure that you prioritize and that you concentrate on the really critical issues. It's very easy as a politician to be distracted by the ephemeral, by what may be in the media that day, or to pursue lots of different causes. But some of the most successful politicians are those who follow a particular cause or a crusade. So I think back to Frank Field. One of the things that he did was to concentrate on fighting poverty throughout his political career. And that's one of the reasons why, even though he was only a government minister for a short period, nevertheless, he leaves a legacy behind more significant than perhaps many other people who've been in government for far longer. So prioritization and time management, I think, is the most important thing.
Obviously, we're fighting this election in two somewhat extreme circumstances. One is in the COVID environment, and the election's 95 days or so away. And the other is the fact that the SNP seem to have this unassailable lead. The union clearly is on the table in the election. What more can we do working collectively as unionists from north and south of the border in both parliaments to make sure we effectively make the case for the union moving forward?
I think there are, again, two things I'd say. The first thing is it's important that we hold the Scottish Government to account because of their obsession with Indy Ref 2. They've neglected their day job. So if you look at the state of Scottish education, Scotland's fallen behind, not because of any fault of our teachers or students, but because you have the Education Minister, John Swinney, talking more about independence than about reading, writing and arithmetic. So, that is the first thing. I think the second thing is to stress, and the COVID pandemic has reinforced this, for the saddest but also most powerful of reasons, we're stronger together. If you look at the way in which the vaccine programme has been rolled out across the UK, the Oxford-AstraZeneca virus, the role of the British Army, they've been indispensable to making sure that Scots get vaccinated more quickly than citizens elsewhere in the European Union. And that is critically a strength of the NHS and a strength of our governments working together.
Yeah. In relation to investment in Scotland, this is a question that came in from one of our members, Fiona Misselbrook. What more can the UK government do to be seen to be investing directly in Scotland?
Well, we have new powers as a result of the UK Internal Market Bill to provide support in Scotland. And one of the things that we're very keen to do is to work with local government. The SNP has centralised power within Scotland. It's neglected local government, neglected local councils, neglected local communities. And what the UK government can do is to make sure that from Haddington to Helensburgh, that we are there working with local councillors and local communities in order to invest in the sort of facilities that make every citizen's life better. It's not about pushing the Scottish government out of the way. It's about making sure that the UK government is there for everyone. Yeah,
absolutely. And business clearly is going to be critical because we're in the pandemic at the moment, but the economic recovery and saving jobs in Scotland is going to be absolutely critical given the sort of weaknesses that were in the Scottish economy as we went into COVID. So what more do you think the Exchequer could do to support Scottish business? And what do you think we as a party in Scotland should be doing?
Well, the budget is going to be crucial. The Chancellor has already made clear that when it comes to furlough or coronavirus business intervention loans, that the Treasury is there to support business and jobs. But I know that the Chancellor will be saying more about how the broad shoulders of the UK Treasury, the spending power of the UK Treasury can be there in order to support jobs in the future.
Super. Now, obviously, as we said, the election is just a matter of weeks away now. Here in East Lothian, we've got a big job of work to do. What would be your message to our membership as we go into that election?
That we can do better than anyone thinks. Think back to the last Scottish parliamentary elections, when the Scottish Conservatives moved into second place against all expectations. The key thing is that we can win at a constituency level and we can get votes on the list basis, which mean that we can prevent Nicola Sturgeon getting a majority. It's only the Scottish Conservatives who are foursquare behind the United Kingdom, only the Scottish Conservatives who can prevent Nicola Sturgeon getting that majority and pitching us into the chaos of a campaign for a second independence referendum. It's only the Scottish Conservatives that can make sure that there is a focus in Holyrood on fixing education, fixing our NHS, fixing transport, and taking a really tough line on crime and justice. And we know that there are people out there who may have voted for different parties in the past who are looking afresh at the Scottish Conservatives, and we can win. We can win in East Lothian, we can win in constituencies across Scotland. We've got to believe in ourselves. And if the Scotland football team can demonstrate at the very last moment in a penalty shootout that a dream can come true, so it is the case that Scotland's #1 linesman, Douglas Ross, can lead us to another victory. Let's hope it's not as nerve-wracking as that penalty shootout, but we know that we can win.